Welcome in to a brand new series here on the Madish Moose channel, a Let's Play for Ara History Untold, a brand new 4X grand strategy game that was released about a month and a bit ago. I am very excited to share this game with you and learn alongside you. That is going to be the theme of this particular Let's Play. It's going to be kind of a learning and growing together within the new 4X game. As you all know, if you're 4X fans, there's a large learning curve with any of these games, even if you've played lots of them before. And so I'm excited to get into kind of my discoveries of this game, show you how I've been playing it. I have over 40 hours of gameplay in at the time of this recording. I got to play for 20 hours during the technical alpha back in June, and then I've played another 20 since it released. I want to be playing more, just life has happened. So I'm really excited to be opening this Let's Play for Ara History Untold this week. There's a couple things to know as we get in. There's a big patch coming out. As per a classic Madish Moose Let's Play series here on YouTube, the developers, literally 2 days before I am recording this, announced that there is a big patch coming out in November that has a bunch of really critical, really cool changes in it. And they're releasing a brand new leader for Canada, which I'm very excited about. So really exciting news coming out of Oxide Games for Ara in the fact that about, 2 months after launch-ish is when their patch will be out. They said sometime in November. They've got a big quality of life patch with some really, really important changes that the community has been calling for. And so I think really good news right off the bat for Ara. Listening to the players, quick patch to address some really big issues, like just for quality of life purposes and really making the game more replayable and more playable for the player base. So very excited to see what comes from Oxide Games for the history, future here of Ara History Untold, because showing that patch like right off the bat and like going into that in November here next month is just going to be, it's going to be really, really good for the game. And so we're going to start our Let's Play, and we're going to hope that most of those changes like follow our game and like implement in our game. If they don't, we might have to make some changes throughout the Let's Play series just to see what those changes might be. But we'll operate right now under this is current, like basically like vanilla, no patches, no anything like that. Ara History Untold. I'm very excited to launch into the game. This will be the first episode in our series, and so we'll jump in. If you've never been here for one of my Let's Play series, welcome in. I love Ara History Untold so far. I'll give you my thoughts as we kind of go through these episodes, but I've really enjoyed playing the game. It's stunningly beautiful, and you'll see that as we get into our Let's Play. But one thing you'll notice is there will be some silence at the beginning, and I will do my darndest to remember to turn the sound back on because I don't want the whole episode to be quiet. But the main music I've been having some problems getting Twitch stuff muted, but I think it's the same across YouTube. So the main theme has been getting some copyright stuff going on. So it'll be quiet while we create the game, and then I'll turn the sound on once we're in the game and the main theme is no longer playing in the background. However, the main theme is beautiful. It's a lovely main theme. So if you'd like to see it, I would encourage you to do that. But let's jump in. We're going to set up the game. We're going to show all the different kind of features and things. I'll go through that pretty quickly, and we'll jump into opening turns and what I think are kind of key strategies and things for the opening turns in Ara History Untold. The first thing that you will notice about Ara History Untold is that the menu screens are gorgeous. They are these kind of like matte painting, concept art-ish style, but they're animated in just gorgeous ways. There are a whole bunch of different ones of these. So every time you like reload into the main menu screen, number one, you get the beautiful theme music, which I can hear right now and you cannot. And then you also get the backgrounds. This is just like a taste of what is in game and what I think makes this game a step above a lot of other 4X games right now that are out. Is this game graphically is gorgeous. And this is just one of the things you can see, like the birds flying across the screen. You've got the wind rustling in the trees. You have movement in the water and the fog moving around. You've got action here with the people that are fishing. It's in each of the loading screens is this way. Each of the menu screens is this way. And I don't know how many different ones there are. I mean, at least like, man, 6, 7, 8, something like that. I haven't actually counted them all, but they're all kind of different biomes and different parts of the world. So very, very cool aspect of the game. This is like, again, I'm raving about it already because, like, very simply, this is gorgeous. And I love just sitting on these screens, listening to the music and like just watching the stuff happen. Like, I don't mind just like being here, All right. You do have multiplayer, and I have tested multiplayer. It actually is very good. It works very cleanly. I've enjoyed my multiplayer experience so far. I've only done like 2 people playing. I did that back during the technical alpha. I got to test their multiplayer a little bit, and I've been testing it a little. I've been playing with a friend as well since launch. We've been having a lot of good. I don't think we've had no crashes. Like, it's been very clean multiplayer, which is always really nice in a 4X game to have that. So we're gonna jump into a single player game. We're gonna start a new game, and the first thing you will notice as we jump in, there are 43. I believe that number's correct. If you like got the pre-order ones, there are 43 starting leaders / civilizations. Each leader is paired with their nation or their civilization. So you have your leader and your civilization are together. You don't pick them separately like Civ 7, or you don't move through eras and change like Humankind or anything like that. It's all together. You play the same leader for the duration of the game, and it's a leader that's paired with the country or nation that they led or are from. And you have 43 options for this. To put that into frame of reference, at launch, Civilization 6 had 19, I believe is the number. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. 19 civilizations for Civ 6 at launch. 43 for Ara History Untold at launch. That is a monstrous number, and they're all really, really cool. There's diverse representation across different continents and geographies and peoples. You have a good split of male and female leaders. You have a good split between military leaders, science-type leaders, merchant-type leaders, like the whole gamut. I really enjoy what they've done with their leaders. What you'll notice is each leader has a specific trait that is unique to them alone. So in this particular one, Ram has white elephants, and no one else will have this particular trait, right? And then every one of the leaders has a set of these. Now, I don't know how they picked how many each leader gets, because it's not the same. Some only have 3. Ram here has 5, which is a larger number. And so all of these, though, are essentially the same. There's a set of traits, effectively, and based on the person's kind of real life from history persona, they picked those traits, right? So you'll see these reflected across all the different leaders, right? There's a whole set of these. I don't know how many total there are. There's quite a few. And you notice that each leader will have different ones of these. So quite a few leaders have the productive trait. Quite a few will have the creative trait, the traditional trait, right? Based on their historical personas, which is really cool. It's a really neat kind of feature to pair them with something unique, but then based on their kind of persona and their historical background, what would those kind of traits be that they also additionally might have based off of that? But those are not necessarily unique, which I think actually goes really well with kind of historical stuff. Now, I'm not going to go through all 43 of these. That's an incredible amount. Trust me when I say that there's a lot of really cool ones in here. And I'm currently playing Nicholas Copernicus of Poland on the Twitch stream. So if you want to catch the Twitch streams, it's twitch.tv/MadishMoose. We play on Monday nights. Currently, we're playing Ara History Untold every Monday. So if you want to catch that game, I'm playing Nicholas Copernicus there. Off stream, I'm also playing a game as Timar the Great. And I'm having a lot of fun with that particular game as well. I debated who to play in this Let's Play for a very long time, but I think I have settled on Benito Juarez. The unique traits and abilities of Benito Juarez. Sons of the people. Tribes will never be initially hostile towards you. This can be really handy in the game, and we'll talk about why that is when we get in and we meet our first tribe. Cities are founded with an additional expert. I'm really interested to see how this works, because experts are not actually assigned to your cities until they are a certain population and size. And it's actually usually I don't know, like 70 to 100 turns into the game-ish, something like that, where you're going to start getting experts in some of your biggest cities. So I'm wondering if you start with them or not. We'll find out if that's true. You also get the trait Independent, +1 housing in non-capital cities, +10 happiness, and +10 prosperity in all cities while not at war. The stately trait, I think, is really powerful. right now, this game, because of the way diplomacy functions, which we'll talk about, maybe I think it could use some tweaks and more information. But stately is going to be good for us, but also questionable because there is a high chance of having quite a few wars declared on you just because of how the AI kind of works and functions right now. And so I'm hoping that we're not at war too much. You all know my playstyle. We'll be at war if we have to be, but I like to play kind of a more defensive kind of game where I don't really be very aggressive. This game, based on kind of starting positions and things, maybe dictates to you whether you might have to do some of that stuff more or not. It's not really meant, and the developers have specifically said that, it's not meant to be a war-oriented game, but obviously as a 4X strategy game, as a grand strategy game, war is part of the game, and it's definitely something you can do. It's just not like a focal point necessarily of the game, which, again, from my perspective, I really like. And if you want to make it your focal point, there are plenty of leaders in the game that actually do make war their focal point. So as much as Oxide Games has come out and said, like, oh, it's not a war game, there's quite a few different leaders that are pretty war-oriented, and their AI, as it turns out, ended up being pretty war-oriented in most of the games that I've been playing. So I think that there's good space for war if that's what you want to do in this game. We also get the trait Efficient, which may be one of the better traits in the game, plus 20% craft production into all crafting improvements in all cities. It's actually a really important one when you get into the crafting system, and the crafting system is nuanced, and it is strategic, and it is really interesting to mess around in, so we'll get into that. We also get Persuasive, which gets us +5 turn duration on Golden Ages, which is, again, very, very handy. When we get into Golden Ages, you'll see if you're in a Golden Age, which you earn points towards over the course of every turn, the more Golden Age points you get, the faster you'll get to a Golden Age, and then you get a Golden Age for 10 turns. This actually increases that to 15, and during that time, you get a 25% boost to your prestige, and prestige is your win condition in this game. So much like in Humankind, where you had fame and you were going for fame over the course of each era, and then at the end, the person with the most fame won in Humankind. In Ara History Untold, their system is called Prestige, and it is the person with the most prestige at the end of the game who is going to win. Now, that being said, it is pretty drastically different from Humankind in that there are a ton, and I mean a ton, of different ways to earn prestige. Humankind is a little restricted in how you earn fame, and that created a sense of like, there was difficult to catch up. When you got ahead in fame, you were pretty much set ahead in fame, and there wasn't really going to be much fluctuations after the game. But we experienced that in our last Let's Play series, and in fact, we've experienced it in almost all of our Let's Play series for Humankind over the course of this channel. However, in my experience so far in Ara, it's a little better in that regard. The prestige system, while it still functions very similarly to the fame system in Humankind, there's so many ways to get prestige. It's not limited by stars, it's not limited by eras, it's like Humankind is a little bit more limited in that way. Prestige is very much wide open, I think, in Ara, and so you don't feel, at least I don't feel like it's so much like you run away with the game necessarily. In every 4X game, there is that snowball that happens at different levels, right? And we'll talk about what level we're going to play at here in a second. But that's the mechanic for prestige, and so that's why Golden Age has become important for us, because that extra 5 turns of Golden Age gets us an additional 5 turns where we could be earning that 25% prestige bonus to anything that we're doing. Okay. If you want to look through all these, I encourage you to do so. You'll notice that all of them also have multiple outfits and different things. Honestly, it's a great touch. If we go over to Elizabeth, just for the sake of it, you'll be able to see that she has some additional ones from kind of pre-order bonuses and things. But you've got kind of like traditional clothing in different variants and different colors. But then they've also opened it up to like unique or special skins, basically. So you've got like hyper royal skin. And then the really cool thing that they've done is they've actually put modern skins, modern kind of clothing options on older leaders. So right, specifically, here's Elizabeth, maybe dressed more modern compared to what she would have been. They've got the same thing with Sappho. It's got like super like glitzy kind of look, and then they've got a modern look for Sappho. George Washington has a whole bunch of them as well. Here's his really kind of glammed up look, and then you've got a very modern look. What would George Washington look like maybe today, right? I really like this. I think it's a really cool feature. I'm willing to bet that that's going to involve a lot of maybe potentially like DLC and purchasable options, which is not my favorite thing in the world, but honestly, it's a really cool little add to the game. So Benito does not have anything specific, like anything really fancy yet, but I really like this gray suit. This is gray. We got the Mexican flag colors here. On I don't know, I don't even know what you would call this. A little sash, like an inside sash of a tux. Like he's wearing a tux essentially, right? It looks very classy. I like this look. I'm gonna go with this color, and we'll jump into our settings. Here are the settings that I have picked for our game. We're gonna play on Marquess difficulty. Earl is apparently the normal difficulty. I've not played on Earl yet. During the technical alpha, we were on Duke, I believe. It was pretty challenging, to be honest. I've been playing everything on Marquess. I might have one game I'm playing on Prince right now. I can't remember. But I'm just learning the game, so we haven't made our way up to anything ridiculous. So we'll stick with Marquess. It's one above the normal difficulty setting. We're going to generate a brand new map. There are a bunch of different continent styles you could do. I've played on a couple of them. I actually really like the World Spine map. It was really fun. I think I've done Twin Continents as well. Twin Continents was cool. We're going to do 4 continents. I think that's maybe more a standard, like, world-esque map. Oh, that's another thing they're coming out with the patch. With the 1.1 patch in November is like an Earth map with, like, true Earth start locations and stuff like that. It looks very cool. I'm excited to play on that in the future. That one will probably make its way to the Twitch streams if you want to watch me play that one. We're going to wrap it. This has already been randomized. We're going to go Earth tilt. You could change the axial tilt, which is kind of interesting. You could change the temperature. We're going to go with mild. You could change the humidity level, monsoon to arid. We're going to go with humid. We're going to keep everything in the middle. Again, for our first Let's Play series, I want to keep everything standard sea level. We're going to keep as average as well. Now, I have the map size set to medium. You have tiny, small, medium, and large. I'm going to go medium, but then I'm actually going to drop the nation count a little bit. Again, I've done this in Humankind quite a bit as well. I did this in Civ 6, to be honest. I like a little bit more space on the map, so it's not quite so congested. So we're going to drop it down to 10 nations. So rather than the 12 suggested for a medium map size, we'll drop it down to 10. And that will free up, hopefully just give a little bit more space on the map. It's also going to make the continents a little bit interesting, because if we're doing 4 continents with 10 players, it'll be a bit of a mismatch on which continents have extra space. But I think that creates some intrigue. But I'm learning the term limit on long. I don't see any reason to change this. Currently, this doesn't actually change anything about the game. It doesn't make the game longer or shorter. It doesn't speed up production. It doesn't do anything. It just sets the turn limit. So it's like the game will end after 1,250 turns. You'll notice in Ara, turns go much faster. Your eras essentially last like 200 turns-ish or something like that. It's very similar to what Civ 7 has been talking about as far as, like, turns. You do more turns and faster turns, essentially, is, I think, what the goal is with this. We're not going to randomize tech draws. I am, for the sake of learning the game and having a Let's Play series, I'm gonna turn off human player culling. So we're going to disable human player culling. Essentially what happens is there are 3 eras or ages. I can't remember what we'll get the words right at some point. There are 3 eras to the game, and at the end of each era, there's a culling of sorts. So the bottom 3 empires in Prestige get culled from the game, and their empires fall into ruin, which I think is a pretty cool mechanism. It's a pretty cool feature. And then that land opens up that you can then go and take it over, which is pretty cool. Again, it refreshes the game at the end of each age and gives you more land to take over even late into the game, which is oftentimes a problem in a lot of 4X strategy games, right? As you run out of like land and stuff to do. So we'll disable this so that even if we're in the bottom, we'll get to stay in the game just in case things go poorly for us. We're going to leave vegetation, wildlife, and ore all on medium. I have found that playing with these on high is pretty darn fun. It adds just a lot of nuance, and there's just more stuff to do in the game if you turn these up. But we're going to stick with medium for now. All right, that is the setup for the game. I'm going to scroll back up just one more time. I'll let you see the seed. I don't know if you could recreate. I would assume you can recreate all this stuff. So if you want to go back through the VOD and check all these boxes and figure out make sure all these things are the same, and then use the seed that is listed right here, then I would assume that you could get a similar or the same start. I haven't pulled any starts in this game. I've just played all the ones that I've been given. So if we get something like looks truly awful for some reason, I suppose we could restart. but I haven't done that in this game yet. So let's hit the create game button. I'll get the audio turned on for you so that you don't have to just listen to me and you can hear the really fantastic soundtrack now that the theme music will not be playing. But let's hit create game and we'll get rolling into our first Let's Play series start on Ara History Untold.
Benito Juarez, defender of Mexico. Your time is now. As a devoted servant leader, be unwavering in your resolve and steadfast in your vision for an honest society that will protect your people through times of change and challenge.
All right. We'll notice now that the sound is actually on. You got ambiance right away. You got the narrator does a really good job. Solid narrator for the game. And we are about to enter Act 1 of I'm going to silence the tutorial just because I've been through the tutorial several times, so we're just going to silence the tutorial. But I do encourage you, if you're playing for the first time, keep the tutorial on. I've developed some ideas that might be kind of maybe separate from what the tutorial might say, but we'll see if those ideas actually plan out. And I strongly encourage you as we jump into this game and as we're, and again, I really want this to be like a learning together experience. I don't consider myself an expert at this game yet by any means. Again, like 40 hours, but there's a lot of people that have spent way more than me. I got to generate a lot of ideas based on my 20 hours during the technical alpha back in June, and then obviously I've been playing quite a bit, both in multiplayer and kind of grabbing like hints and tricks and tips from people, both through YouTube creators, but also on my Twitch channel as people are playing the game alongside and with me, as well as some of the multiplayer games that I've been playing, just to like chat back and forth about what we think is best and how we think is best to play it. There's a lot of different strategies out there right now, and I think, again, one of the fun things about this game, which is very similar to Humankind, is I think you can kind of play this game however you want. It doesn't feel like you're really locked into a particular playstyle. It doesn't feel like you have to do certain things. There are some general kind of tips and tricks that we'll try to go through, but for the most part, you can kind of play the game the way you want. I really enjoy that in a 4X strategy game. I think that works out quite well to my playstyles, and I like that it gives you the flexibility to kind of take the game and do with it what you want, which I think is exciting. Here is our starting area, and the first thing that I always like to double check is just that there's some resources. So we have some resources, not many. Now, one thing to note is there are resources that do not appear until you research them. Sometimes you can see these resources on the map even though you have not discovered them yet. There might be a deer resource here that we haven't discovered. I think deer are one of the ones you can see right away. I haven't really quite figured out what you can and can't see immediately. On the last map I played, there was like a herd of elephants in a particular location, and that became an elephant's resource when I discovered the ability to put hunting improvements on those resources. So while it looks like there may not be a ton of resources around us currently, I do think that there are possibilities for some additional resources to proc and pop up around us, horses, other things of that nature that will be on the map eventually. So we'll have to see what that ends up looking like. But the look of this land is not bad. Down here we have some trees, and the land does reflect, what you see reflects what you're going to end up with. So if we go down here, we can actually turn on some of our yields and things so we can see what the land looks like. I typically play with these off just because I love the look of this game. It's very beautiful, and so I want to be able to see things. But what we can see down here, right, we have a lot of trees, and you can see our lumber, our timber is very high. So we have 3 timber down here where there's trees. You'll notice there's a few trees here, so we still have 1 timber available here, but now we get into more open fields and plains, so we have 3 food available. And then over here, what you'll notice is we actually have 3 materials available to us over here. So this actually has some good materials in it as well. We also have access to grapes, and we also have access to rice, both of which will prove to be important as we get into kind of the crafting system and all of those things. What I really like is that in our capital, we don't have any resources. And this is kind of contrary to what might be kind of naturally inclined to. But in your capital city, and in fact in any city center, what I would encourage you to do, the game will not kind of guide you this way. My encouragement is in your city center, so the territory that you put your city in, anytime you create a city, I try to put them where there are no resources. That is because there are certain buildings, 2 or 3 of them, that are very specific to being in a city center, and they get bonuses from being in a city center. The dwelling, which increases your housing, is one of those. And so you kind of want to save all your tiles within your city center for buildings that benefit from being in your city center of a city, right? So eventually we'll get to start claiming up all these territories and add them into our city. But this territory right here will always be our city center territory. So that's kind of how expansion works in Ara History Untold, is here are all the territories we can claim. Our city center will be here. We'll be able to build out into any of these territories, but our city center is always our city center, and so you want to save as many territories, zones, if you will, within this, and so we'll be able to see our zones. So here are our zones. Each territory has a certain number of zones from 2 to 6 on the far side. I think every time I started a game, the capital city starting one has 5, which is fine. So as long as we have 5, then I'm good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's our 5, all kind of centered around the middle portion here. So we have 5 territories, 5 zones, sorry. We have 5 zones within our territory, which I think is just they set that across the board. If they had not done that, that would be the reason to pull a new start. And I think they adjusted this from the technical alpha, because I'm pretty sure I pulled some starts in the technical alpha where I started on tiles where I was like, why would I start here? But you do start with your city down already, and so you don't have a choice to move your starting city. The capital is established already. This is the territory of your capital. And I think they did that for balancing purposes, because I think they just ensured that every starting city center territory has 5 zones within it, so that everyone starts on something that's basically the same. So we have our territories here. This is a nice little territory. It's got 3 food, 2 timber, 2 materials, and 1 wealth on it. And so those are kind of the FIMs, if you will, for this territory. And so again, we'll be able to add other territories in. Eventually we'll add in a bunch of these, and we'll probably move towards this territory. Looks really nice because it's got extra materials in it. So 3 food plus the extra materials and the grapes, which we can harvest through our farm improvements. And then this territory as well, again, because it has the rice on it. And we also get closer to coast over here, which is pretty nice. So we'll probably head in this direction, but we'll have to see as we explore. So a couple things to do right away is notice that there are animals. We have 2 wolves here. These animals are basically needed to be hunted. You don't have to fight them, but you cannot do anything with that zone. The zone they are in within this territory, you cannot do anything with it until they are cleared. Some predators are more dangerous than others. The wolves are the easiest ones to hunt. They only require 1 hunt action, and they are a 2-level danger. So whatever the danger level is, how much damage your scout or other unit can take from them. They can succeed in the hunt, or kind of what they always. The hunt always takes place. They can either take more damage or less damage. There's basically a roll for whether they take more damage or less damage in the hunt. And then some of them take more than 1 hunt, right? Now, it is important to do these because you do get a lot of goodies from these hunts. So it is important to do the hunts. And make note, not all units have the ability to hunt. So some units have the hunt ability and some do not. So if you are planning on doing hunting with a particular unit or an army that you're going to build, make sure that they have the hunt ability. Otherwise, you won't actually be able to do that with them. All scouts have the hunt ability. And the other thing that scouts can do, and we actually don't see any on the map currently, the other thing scouts can do is pick up caches or curiosities or goodie huts or tribal nation. Like, there's whatever game you come from. That's what they can do, is pick up caches as well. And the caches are, again, very valuable. So there are strats out there where people will say, open, double, even triple scout, so that you can A, hunt a whole bunch, and B, collect caches and get your exploration done. It's a viable strategy. I'm probably not going to go that way, but it's a viable strategy to open like 2 or 3 scouts and just get scouts out and start to do hunts and pick up caches. They are valuable. They're very valuable. But I'll talk about maybe what my thought is as we kind of get into it here over the next few turns. Everything in this game is done in the simultaneous turn fashion. So you'll notice if we want to move our scout, we'll select our scout and we'll move our scout to a territory. I think I'm going to go north first. There appears to be some mountains down here, so we might have I don't know if the mountains continue or not, but I got mountains here, I got mountains here. If there's mountains down here as like a pass, like that's pretty nice. I think I want to go north and see what's up here because it looks more open. And then we'll see what's going on. I also want to hunt these wolves, I think, relatively quickly and or get my scout out in a faster fashion. So these wolves would be pretty easy to hunt. Our scouts only have one movement, you'll notice right here. And so what we have to do is set our scout to have an action for this turn. So our action for this turn is going to be to move into this territory. Now you'll notice when I'm zoomed out, everything is done kind of in more of an icon fashion. Like here's the icon that moves. But if you zoom in, there's the unit. And it's actually there, right? So I've got the scout unit is actually on the map and it's actually there to be looked at. And you can see everything going on. The same thing is true as you zoom in on the wolves. And if you put your mouse over things, they will do things. So these wolves stop and howl. But if we zoom in our city, all these people are actually doing things. They're actually active. And if I put my mouse over them, they actually have animations that they do. Little touches like this are absolutely beautiful. This game, if you look at the details, just stunning. I absolutely love the look and feel of this game. If we come over to the coast, you can see that there are waves. Once we get out into the water, you will see that clouds actually impact the waves. You can see the wave, make the water darker versus shadows and different things like that. All the animals that you'll start to see come across the map. The world is very much alive. You'll also start to see, right, here's the wolves running around within the forest. They will hunt little animals and things like that. Your mountains are absolutely beautiful in the game. Lots of little things about this. My favorite part about the game, probably, is just how absolutely beautiful the game is. I think it's stunning. I love the nuances. Look at the birds flying around. All the little details about the world are beautiful. We don't see a river right now. Rivers are also create a lot of beauty. So we don't have a river currently, which is a little bit unfortunate. We do have some coast though. So again, I think maybe moving towards the coast would be probably a pretty solid settle for us. A couple other things to check on your opening turn. In your city, you will notice that you have one thing and one thing only currently, and that is your Great Hearth. Your Great Hearth starts your journey into the crafting system of Ara History Untold, and the crafting system is really interesting because it allows you to do a ton of different things. You can craft things to use as amenities, which are critically important in your cities. You can craft things to use as supplies within each of your buildings, which make your buildings produce things faster or be more efficient or do whatever. And then you can also come down here, and in your crafters, you can also accelerate your ability to craft things. So right now you'll notice I'm producing a feast. Feasts are your bread and butter throughout the first age of the game, and maybe even longer. 25 city growth, huge. 5 extra food, and 10 extra happiness. Now, the quality of life stats are important. You'll notice that as we increase our quality of life, our happiness specifically will increase our city production, our health will increase our city growth, our knowledge will increase our science per turn, our prosperity will increase our tax returns from the city, and our security will increase our force strength in that city. It also increases your trained unit force strength. So when you train a unit out of your city, the higher the security, the higher the bonus to their permanent force strength. So all of these quality of life stats have a really nice kind of bonus to them as you increase them. So your feast increases happiness, which is really good for production, which then allows you to build things faster, which is obviously very good. Also gives you city growth. So we want feasts as much as possible in our amenities slot. Now, this city does already have an amenity slot. We don't have any amenities yet, so we can't put anything in this slot. First things first, we want to get an amenity, and the feast is going to be our amenity that we want to get first. We can also go after jewelry, which would increase our prosperity and happiness some more, but jewelry is very expensive to make. So we're going to start with the feast because it has the city growth on it, and growth, if you've ever watched me play Humankind on any of our Let's Plays, you know that I think growth is king in Humankind. I also think that growth is potentially king in Ara History Untold. So we want to increase our production value of this feast. So we have 3 different possible accelerant options for this. So each of these plus signs will give you a different option to spend to increase your production of this feast. So we're going to build one feast currently. So I'm going to turn it off of infinite. We're going to go one at a time just because I like to have a little more nuanced control at the beginning here. We're gonna build one feast. This increases it by 50 production. So we want to jump in here. We could spend 2 food, and we can spend 4 wealth to be able to do this. Now, if we look up here, we're currently getting +1 food per turn, which is not a ton, but we're getting +11 wealth per turn. So that's not bad. So I think I'm going to put the wealth, right? We'll put wealth in here to get that reduction down. And then we also want to basically spend anything that we have to be able to get this lowered, to get a feast in as soon as possible. Maybe people will argue on this, but my first feast that I produce, I want as fast as I possibly can get it, because I have no amenities in right now, so I'm getting no bonuses. So I'm going to spend anything I have, I'm just going to spend. And this is actually going to drain our wealth entirely. So I might even switch this one to food, actually. -1 food, +4 wealth, just to keep our wealth growing. I don't love that we're not going to have the food. And we'll pull the food out eventually, just to make sure that we keep our food numbers growing. In fact, you know what? I wonder if I should just go wealth. We just spend all of our wealth on this first one. We get a feast in 5 turns at this particular rate. So I think I might do all wealth, actually, and then not grow our wealth at all, but keep our food increasing, because I want our food to continue increasing as much as I can. As soon as we can, we'll also want to put some of our supplies in. So these supplies will increase our Great Hearth over the course of the game and make it so we produce things faster. So as soon as we get a lithic tools or rope or anything like that, we'll also slot those into our supply slots. And as it turns out, the benefit of choosing Benito Juarez of Mexico is we do actually get an expert right at the start, which is really interesting because most civilizations, in fact, I don't think any other ones have this trait, right? This is a unique trait to Mexico, to Benito Juarez. We get experts in our first city right off the bat, which is really interesting. It's going to be 70 turns probably, 60 to 80 at least turns before anyone else has a city that has a high enough population to unlock experts. And we get an expert right off the bat on those opening turns. I think that's going to be really powerful for us as we go throughout the game. So we can actually put an expert in here, and what you will see is that gets us 150% craft production at this improvement. This is actually huge. The more I'm thinking about this, this is a really big deal. So we're going to put our expert. This is the only place we can put our expert currently. If we return to map, we go back to our city. Every improvement you have will have a spot for an expert for the most part, but we don't have any other improvements right now. This is the only improvement we have, right? This is the only build we have is the Great Heart. So it's the only place we can put an expert. So we're going to go ahead, and you can do this a bunch of different ways. If you click experts here, it will actually pull you out into your map view, and it'll show you all the different places you can put an expert and what the bonuses would be. This is usually the way you'd want to do it, is you click on this button, and then it shows you which places have experts. And then, of course, if you hover over things in this game, it's more than likely going to tell you the information you want to know. So just hover over something if you need to know something. This will get us plus 150 craft production at this improvement. I think that's going to be huge. That's going to reduce it by an entire turn. Now, this is a little UI adjustment I think they could make, but the only way to know that your expert is assigned is that there's no little green exclamation point here. There's a green exclamation point here. It means you have an expert that's unassigned. I wish it would say like 1 of 1 or something like that. It would just be a nice little change. So we're going to produce that feast as quickly as we possibly can as we get into it. We also ended up with 5 more wealth. Where did that wealth just come from? Oh, it increased our yields as well. So not only did it get us our plus 150% craft production at this improvement, it also increased the yields of this improvement from 10 to 15. So we actually gained 5 wealth per turn as well. So you can see experts are very powerful. And having an expert this early feels really, really nice. That feels like you could snowball this really hard with Benito. So it's a really cool feature. It's a subtle thing. It's just like, hey, +1 expert per city. But when you get it right off the bat and no one else is going to have this for like 70 turns possibly, ooh, man, that's very nice. Because now we're salvaging what would have been no wealth over the next like several turns. We're going to get our feast out pretty quick as well. This is pretty cool. I like that a lot. Okay, our next thing that we need to do is select a project for our city. So this is your build menu, effectively. Now, there's a lot of different possibilities here. There's a couple different strats that you can do. Scout, obviously, is one strategy. Dwelling is another strategy if you go straight into dwelling. And what you'll notice about the dwelling is that you get +2 city housing if you build this in your city center. So the dwelling is one of those buildings where you might want to even stack dwellings in multiple zones within that city center territory, because you do get +3 housing just for building a dwelling anywhere, but you get 2 bonus housing for a total of 5 if you build the dwelling in your city center. You'll notice the growth factor over here. We have 5 housing currently, so we'd actually double our housing if we put a dwelling in our city center territory, right? We only get 3 housing if we put it outside of that. That also plays into our growth. It plays into different things. If you hit your housing cap, then you cannot grow anymore and your population will not increase. So you always want to time your dwellings out such that you will not get stuck at your housing cap on that. So we're not anywhere near growing, so we don't have to particularly worry about this yet. Farm is another option, but again, because it's a city, you only can build in the city center right now. We haven't expanded yet. Farms go good together, and there are other buildings that we will research that go well with farms as well. And so if you want to put all of your farms in the same territory and then put a building in there that benefits all of the farms within that territory, you kind of want to put all your farms together in a territory. The same can be said of logging camps. The same can be said of a lot of different buildings in the game, specifically buildings that harvest resources for you. Workshops actually have kind of the same-ish benefit later on in the game. So there's not adjacency bonuses per se in Ara History Untold, but grouping certain buildings and certain types of improvements into the same territory typically is going to net you positive results. So here's what I think we're going to do. I have been known to open with a workshop to start. I do think that that's probably not the most advantageous way to open. What the workshop gets me is the ability to craft things faster, to improve my buildings faster. I really like the ability to do this, and it's really tempting just to do this right off the get-go. It's a 6-turn build. It's a quick build to get a workshop very fast, and then I can start producing more things in my city. The scout takes 7 turns. Now, here's something to note. The scout deploys immediately. The spearman, you might say, wow, the spearman only takes 5 turns. The spearman can also hunt. It cannot pick up caches, but the spearman actually has to function as an army, and so it actually has a mustering turn and a deployment turn as well. So when you build a spearman, you can get the spearman out 1 turn faster than a scout, is I think what I've discovered. So the beauty of the spearman is it only costs 25 materials. Scout costs 75 gold and 50 materials. The scouts are a little more useful than the spearman. Now, what I have found to be useful is that spearmen I use the spearmen for hunts, and I use the scouts to go explore and pick up caches. That way my scouts aren't spending too much time fighting stuff, and my spearmen can go around maybe doing more of the hunts while the scouts go out finding caches and doing exploration. That's been kind of my MO. And so I'm tempted to build a spearman because we have 2 hunts we can do right away. I'm tempted to open with a spearman just to get it out there. But I'm also really tempted to stick with my workshop opener. I actually haven't seen this as like a suggested strategy, so maybe I'm brutally wrong. And like, you should always go scout. And if I am, please let me know. That's what this is all about, right? Learning the game together. So please comment on the videos, comment on all the episodes, because number one, it's obviously helpful for viewing and stuff like that. But I would love to know how you play your opening turns so that we can learn from each other. I actually think I'm going to stick with my guns. And I'm going to build a workshop in my opening territory. I think this goes against a lot of the stuff I just said, like holding for dwellings, opening with scouts, building a spearman. I think I'm going to go workshop into spearman, into scout, is maybe how I'm going to go. And again, maybe people are like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Let's see. Let's see if my workshop will get me what I'm looking for. I'm going to put the workshop maybe over here. All of this is aesthetic. Within the territory, there's no bonuses or anything like that or adjacencies within the territory. So as long as you, again, if you put all farms in here, they benefit each other, and there's other buildings that will benefit those farms. So that's something to think about. But from a placement standpoint, within each territory, the zone you put stuff in is not critically important. So it's all aesthetic based in this point. So if my Great Hearth is over here, I don't think I want my workshop necessarily like next to my gathering point. So I'm gonna put like my Great Hearth on the opposite. Sorry, I'm gonna put my workshop on the opposite side. But I'm gonna open with the workshop. I've done this a couple times, I haven't decided whether it's like awesome or not. I like it because I think it does good things for me. But we'll see. We'll see. The other thing with the dwelling, if you choose to go dwelling first, the dwelling does actually, if you look at if we open up a queue here to see what the bonuses are. If you go dwelling first, it does get you plus 3% city production. 3% when our number is this low doesn't feel like it's going to be super impactful at this point, so I'm okay holding on the dwelling for now, but that's just something to think about as you're kind of going about things. That, I believe, takes us to the end of our first turn, and so we'll be able to progress to the next turn. There's our city founding, and then we have next turn already. And normally all of those things would proc over here, and I'd be able to click on them through. I just kind of knew what I wanted to do, so we went through and did them. So we have our, as rushed as we can, as accelerated as we can, we have our feast coming out. We have our scout going out, and then we'll try to get a workshop done. And then again, I think I'm going to go spearman to try to execute on the hunts. We might hunt this wolf with our scout. It just depends on what we see. So let's hit next turn. You'll see how the simultaneous turns works, right? So we put in all of our orders to our units, to our cities, to our builds, to anything, right? We put all of that stuff in, and now we hit next turn and all that stuff executes. So that is the simultaneous turn nature of Ara History Untold. All right, there we go. So now we've discovered more wolves, which I am not opposed to at all. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4 wolves, and I don't mind wolves at all because that's an easy hunt. And so that's actually going to, I think, do well for us. We have more coast over here, and now you can start to see a couple different things. There is a herd of cattle over here. Wow, that cattle is in the water. I wouldn't be there if I were you. You'll see a herd of cattle here, and this doesn't appear as a resource right now. More than likely, when we research the appropriate technology, this will, in fact, become a resource that we can farm, and we can farm cattle there. That's actually pretty valuable for us as well. So we start to see our land around us as we go. I'm going to skip this hunt. I'm going to leave it for a spearman, and I'm going to go gather the cache as quickly as I can with our scout. So we've discovered the cache, and then if you click on this unit idle, it'll take you straight to your scout. I would advise to use this unit idle button because it's the best place to kind of access your idle units. Once you get like a lot of units on the map, I like to use the little side notifications here to get to your units, but maybe that's personal preference. So there's a river up here, so this looks like a nice place to go anyway from an exploration standpoint. So we'll move our scout on the next turn. Hunting. We also have now unlocked our technology tree, and this is another place where we will get a pretty drastic difference from most 4X strategy games, in my opinion. The tech tree creates a lot of uniqueness within Ara History Untold. So if we open up the whole tree, you'll notice we're in Act 1. So I think I said Era earlier. My bad. Act 1. There are 3 acts. Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. Each act has 4 ages within it, and the game ends when you get to the technological singularity. I don't know if one person has to get there or if I think a couple people have to get there. I can't remember what the ramifications are of that, but essentially the tech tree is kind of how you end the game, basically, on that, right? And it's also worth 500 prestige. This is like a lot of great things up here in the tech tree, obviously. So 3 acts, 4 ages per act, and each age within the act is kind of its own little technology tree. Now, you do not have to research everything in every age. However, age. However, be aware that all the things you unlock, you might not be able to unlock again, period, or you might not be able to unlock again for a little while. So one example of this is if you go down to rope making, you get rope and access to make fishing nets and different things like that if you research rope making. In the Bronze Age, if you choose not to do rope making, there are no techs that will get you access to ropes or rope making. You just will not be able to craft rope or make fishing nets in the Bronze Age if you choose to do that. Now, once you get to the Iron Age, you'll see that seafaring is over here, and seafaring will get you access to, if you see there, rope and fishing nets again, right? So if you choose to pass on rope making in ancient history, I wouldn't advise it. But if you did, you could get it again, but not until you get to the Iron Age later in the game in Act 1. So, yes, you can skip techs. At what cost is you have to determine whether that's a good choice for Empire or not. So, that's how the tech tree works. So I think you have to research 5. Yeah, you have to see it 0 of 5. You have to research 5 techs for sure, and then you can choose to then research the tech that moves you up into the next area, which is in this case bronze working, I believe. In this one is the last one. So if you research bronze working, that moves you into the Bronze Age. What is our first tech going to be? There are lots of different options. Rope making is a pretty good one. Gets you access to the first wonder of the game. There are a couple things that I've noticed in playing the game that can be very, very helpful. Number 1, plows help your farms. Number 2, you get access to seeing your venison. You get access to seeing your horses, your cows. So animal husbandry actually unlocks a lot of resources for you on the map and shows you where you might want to start claiming territories. And so animal husbandry can be a very popular one at first. I do think that rope making is another popular one. Why? Rope making gets you access to the logging camp, and the logging camp will increase your ability to create timber. And that is really important. And so it's really tempting to go rope making to start with. It gets you, again, access to starting to craft things for a wonder. You need rope in order to make Stonehenge. So you'll notice that there are requirements. You have 5 lithic tools and 10 rope. Those are craft things that you will make out of your workshop primarily, which is why I'm building a workshop early. And you'll need some timber to be able to build that as well. But this gets you access to build the ropes. You have to research the rope first, and then you can actually use that rope to improve things. So there's a lot of different potential for this. I don't think we need the logging camp immediately, but I think rope making is probably a good second tech for us. I think I want to go into animal husbandry first because it will show us a little bit more on the map of what we can do. There are different things you can get down here, like a hunting camp. And so a lot of the times, the resources on your map will dictate where you want to go. Now, we have farms, and we already have access to farms. So we don't particularly have to have any of these things for the resources that we have. Now, if we needed a hunting camp because there were furs or something else that we could do on the map with the resources we had, then we might want to even go into archery to get access to the hunting camp. If we needed to put in some timber, we would want to go rope making maybe early. I think animal husbandry is a really good opening play because it reveals resources on the map and can be very informative as to kind of what you might want to go to next. So we'll have access to that in 7 turns based on our 5 science per turn that we have right now. That kind of takes us to the end of our turn, right? We haven't discovered anything. We don't have any kind of resources to spend, and so we can go to the next turn. We discovered another cache, which is nice. So we come up here. We've got another cache to collect. So again, our decision to not hunt with our scout and instead go out and collect caches, I think is going to pay off for us. So we need to spend a turn to grab our resource cache. That's what our scout will do on this turn, is grab the resource cache. And then again, we have nothing to do. That's it. Turns in Ara flow pretty quickly because of this. We are currently building our workshop. It's going to take 4 turns. We are currently producing our feast, which we want to get in as soon as possible, right? We have a couple turns left on that. Now, one other mechanism to go through. So we talked about accelerating our crafting products, right? So we're accelerating our feast build. We can rush our builds. So up here, you will see the rush project. You can pay gold to rush projects, and that will finish them faster than they would otherwise be done. So it still doesn't happen until the end of the turn, right? Remember, everything's simultaneous turn. So even if you rush something, you have to end turn before that rush takes place. And then on the next turn, my workshop would be done. I'm not going to spend my gold on rushing the workshop, although you could argue that then I can get other stuff out faster. But right now, we're just going to go with it, right? So it would cost me 86 gold of my 110, which is pretty spendy. We're only making 5 per turn right now, right? But we also have a lot of that. All of our gold is going toward accelerating our feast, right? So we could rush this and get it on the next turn for 86 gold. I don't think that's worth it right now, but rushing projects does become a viable strategy later, especially if you're trying to rush out a settler, if you're trying to do other things like that, get an army out more quickly, or there's a key wonder that you're trying to get to and you need to rush a building or a farm in order to get to building that. So rushing can be a useful tactic as you go into it. We're not going to rush this in particular, so we'll return to our map and we will hit next turn. All right, we have collected a cache. Ooh, it's not a great cache. It's not a great cache. We got 15 materials out of that cache. It's all right. It's all right. We don't really need materials right now. I would have loved to see some other things out of that cache. Some caches can be incredibly valuable. We'll make use of those materials later on, but that's a little bit of a bummer, right? So we'll go back up here. We're going to go to the next cache. So in order to do that, we need to move into the territory. So we move into the territory first, then we'll get cache. Now, if you want to, you can tell them just to go get the cache right away. It'll take 2 turns, but you can't do that, right? I'm doing it step by step. If you know me, I like my nuanced control, so I'm going step by step. But you could just say, hey, go get that cache, and it will go on the next turn, go get the cache. You don't have to like step by step it if you don't want to, right? 1 turn left on our feast, and then we'll be able to get our feast in. Let's hit that next turn button. Turn 5. We're getting so far on this first episode. Feels like a classic Maddish Moose Let's Play series. All right, so our feast has been crafted. If we click on this, it will take us back here. We actually want to keep crafting feasts. So what is going to happen is we're going to come over here to our amenities place. So we're in our city of Mexico, and we are going to go here to the amenities. We're going to click on this. We now have an amenity available because we crafted a feast. The feast is going to get us what we talked about earlier, that plus 25 growth, plus 5 food, and plus 10 happiness. We're going to put this in. Now, what you'll notice is this only lasts for 10 turns. So each turn, this will tick down, and then the feast will be used up. This makes sense, right? The feast will eventually disappear. So we have 10 turns of those bonuses, which is really nice. But then we'll be out of feasts. So what we want is to craft another feast. So we're here at our Great Hearth. We can put another feast in. Now, we don't need a feast in 4 turns. Really, we only need a feast in 10 turns. So we can actually probably reduce some of this out. We can empty this. We can probably empty this. A feast in 7 turns is plenty of time. That will get us what we need. We may want to start crafting other things, like maybe a jewelry or something like that at some point in the future. But for now, we can pretty much just take the wealth or the food, and it might be pertinent even to switch this to food because it only costs 2 food, right? I'm gonna stick with wealth. We're not getting as much food as we're getting wealth, and I think food is going to be valuable for us when we choose to start to build like a second settler and other things that require food. So I'm going to go with this. 7 turns seems fine for me. I'm going to keep that there. We don't have any supplies yet, but as soon as we get some supplies, we'll be able to also enhance some of our supplies. Now, the nice thing about supplies is that they do not expire. So amenities tick down over 10 turns. I think they're all 10 turns, and then they disappear. If you put a supply in, it is permanent. You just put a supply in, it boosts that building for the duration of the game, essentially, when you put a supply in. So that's something to keep in. Okay, we have a feast. We have put the feast in, so our city is now benefiting from that feast. We have an idle unit. We're going to collect this cash. And let's do at least 1 more turn here in this opening episode. So we'll press the next turn button. We'll discover our cache. 15 food. So again, it's okay. It's okay. You can get from these caches plows and tools and rope and different, more important things. So our first 2 caches aren't awesome. We see now some leopards up here as well. This wolf is guarding these sheep. So we have sheep as a resource on the map. You can see the sheep, and they are being hunted by the wolves. Don't worry, the sheep will stay, but we have to clear the wolves before we can actually access the sheep once we own that territory, right? Lots of different hunts to be had. We also now see that we have fish out in the water. You can see the fish underneath the water, and you can see the seagulls that have the seabirds that have congregated around the fish. These are the things in this game, and the ambiance. There's our cache. Our feast is now active. To see what's over here, I'm really intrigued as to what our scenario is here. Let's move into this territory because that will defogify all of these. We'll do this move right here for our next turn, and that will set us up or just pressing the next turn button when we start, which is what I like to do for each of my episodes. So those are opening 6 turns. That's not very much, but we had to go through setting up the game and all of that stuff. So 6 quick turns, or rather 6 not so quick turns into Ara History Untold, and that will begin our Let's Play series. Thank you all so much for joining me for our very first episode in a brand new Let's Play series for Ara History Untold. I'm very excited to continue to show you this game and to learn from you all. So please feel free, drop some comments on how you open your games. How have you played so far? What leaders and civilizations and nations have you chosen? How has it gone for you? What are you liking about the game? Obviously, we'll talk about kind of the patch that's coming out as we run into some of the things that we might want to talk about as far as what needs to improve or change with the game. The patch in November is already solving most of the things that I have issues with in the game. I'll talk about some other things that I think they need to address as we get into the Let's Play series, but I'm really enjoying Ara. I hope you enjoy this series as well. If you like the content, hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel with notifications on. so you know when we release these videos. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.